Welcome to the Mornings with Rebecca and Burns Overtime Show. We appreciate you joining us today. I'm Don Burns, and that is my co-host, Rebecca Carroll.
Hello, thank you for joining us. So we're posing a question to you today. You've probably already seen it on the title. However, here it is. Are we living in the last days? I'm going to read something to you out of Matthew chapter 24. This is part of what's called, it's one of Jesus's speeches, sermons, and it's called the Olivet Discourse. And this is what he says. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. So, Don Burns, are we living in the last days?
I grew up a Southern Baptist preacher's kid, and I remember my dad preaching on Daniel on, I think it's Matthew 24, is that right? And then,
Yes.
of course, Revelation, and I got all the differing views of premillennial, amillennial, postmillennial, and my dad was always big on, I knew exactly where he stood, but he always wanted me to figure it out for myself. And I kind of, in my studies, I always felt like, and this was not a very popular opinion with the people I went to church with and even a lot of my friends, I have grown up, and I'm going to be blatantly honest with you, I did not feel like we were in the last days. I didn't feel, for some reason, I just didn't feel like Jesus was coming back in my lifetime. That I was going to live a full life and that I would get to spend eternity with him, but that I didn't believe he was coming back in my lifetime. And I really felt that way. And to be blatantly honest with you, a lot of that may have been selfish. I love spending time with my kids. I love spending time with my grandkids. And I realized, don't get me wrong, I realized heaven and the glory of heaven is so much better than anything we could ever have on earth and experience on earth. I just didn't feel that. And, whether Jesus comes back today or tomorrow, it has nothing to do with my feelings. And I know that. But I've started to feel like these could be the last days. And I don't know if it's because of the pandemic we're going through right now, but it's not just that. It's everything that is going on. Jay Allen shared with us that this might be the last pandemic we see, this year or in the next few years. There might be another one that's coming. And I'm just thinking, you know what? Maybe, maybe,
Sure.
maybe these are the last days, and I need to be better prepared than what I am.
One of the things that we talked about on this week's episode of the Honest Conversations podcast was that every single generation since Jesus ascended to heaven, every single generation has believed that Jesus's return was imminent and that it would happen in their lifetime. Every single generation has been able to point to a figure and say, Antichrist. And so I've always leaned on what Jesus said a little later in Matthew 24. He says, but about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. And so I think that all of this discussion surrounding whether or not we are in the last days, I think it comes from a place of longing. And I think it comes from a place of just wanting our world to be fixed, which is a good and right desire. I mean, you and I were not made for the earth as it is today. We were made for Eden. That's what we were made for.
Yep.
And when God makes the new heavens and the new earth, it's some scholars call it the re-identification of the earth, returning to Eden. And so this is what we did on this week's episode of the Honest Conversations podcast. It's called Are We Living in the Last Days? And we had Dr. Michael Spiegel from Dallas Theological Seminary. He is the chair of the theology department, and eschatology is one of his big passions. Eschatology is the study of last things, the study of end times. And he had an answer for us. And you're going to have to listen to the podcast to see what it was. But I will tell you one thing that he said that has really encouraged me. He said that we tend to look at the world today and we see a global pandemic and we see COVID cases rising and we see wars happening all over the planet, famines, locusts, bizarre weather patterns. We see all of these things and we start to think that we are fighting this losing battle, but we're fighting a winning battle. We're fighting a winning battle because we know how this book ends.
I love that. The battle belongs to the Lord. We will see a victory. That's one of the songs we play on KCBI. I know you want to hear the entire Honest Conversation podcast, and great news, it's available for you at kcbi.org. Matter of fact, the entire years plus Honest Conversation podcast is available for you. Check it out at kcbi.org. And don't forget to listen to Mornings with Rebecca Ann Burns on the radio tomorrow morning starting